to an utter version of Indie Film Cafe's Short Film Saturday.
Yes, you got that right. Yeah.
And I'm your old pal, the Moo Cow, and I'm with
Jonathan A. Moody.
And today we watched a very strange pre-code 1927 short film called Forbidden Daughters.
Forbidden Daughters.
It was directed by Albert Arthur Allen, who was a photographer from the 20s and into the 30s, who his subject matter was nude women, as you do. And this was apparently the only actual movie that he shot. It's a short one. It's 12 and a half minutes, and it involves this woman named Alva, who's played by, Clarice Conwell, very ably, I must say. And she gets, I guess her husband is an explorer, as you do.
Right.
He's off in deepest, darkest Africa, and has been lost for an undescribed...
Africa.
Yeah, length of time. And so she gets this telegram in the mail basically saying, your husband's been found and he's hanging out with a bunch of naked women, basically. So she's like, oh shit, I better go get him. And this kind of explains why he hasn't come back yet, I suppose.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm happy with the new chicks.
Because she's just kind of hanging around, lounging out, topless on her couch, as you do. And then she gets her maid to pack her bags, and she's like, I'm coming to rescue you, honey. And you don't actually see the travel, but she goes off there. And in the meantime, you see that old husband there has been hanging out, and he's got a variety of people there. He's got about a dozen native, which is to say African-American ladies who are pretty much either topless or fully nude, depending on the shot. Some are white. There are some white ones there. And somewhere along the line, they both get mixed up with a sheik who has a harem. And what's her name? Alva gets herself captured. And she gets put into the harem. They all get jealous because they want to get the sheik's attention or love. And one of them stabs another one. I think Alva does, doesn't she?
I think so.
Yeah, and she gets tossed into the dungeon, where there are other naked women just kind of sort of there.
You know, they're like handcuffed.
The Dungeon of Naked Women. That sounds like an Al Adamson movie. And but she's clever, and she manages to pick the rusty lock and escapes, and she runs off to the village, and there's her husband in the arms of this other naked chick. And so she's like, dagnabbit, if that's what you want, that's what I'm going to do to get you back. So she completely disrobes and looking quite well.
Is that really, that's all it takes?
That's all it took. I have to say,
disrobing.
Clarice Conwell looked pretty damn hot for 1927. But she goes up to him and says, okay, it's time for you to choose her or me. And he chooses her. And that's,
there you go. I mean, why not?
That's the movie.
It was... And there at one point she has to go through the jungles, apparently. And yeah, jungles.
It's a bush. They put a bush there. And
I know, and then
filmed her coming out.
They put stuff on her so it looked like she was.
They tore a sleeve.
Tore a sleeve, so she looked like she had gone through hell, but she really just went through someone's backyard. Yeah. I mean, it was ridiculous.
They had some sets though. I mean, they had kind of a very minimal chic setup there, but they had some at least the front of a couple of grass huts. That was kind of cool, like Gilligan's Island style. They
had a jail cell or whatever, the dungeon, which had a, it looked like they had a door that looked like it had,
but that filled up like 85 to 90% of the screen. There was a little part there where you could see past it that it was a set, and there was like a curtain there, and it was like, oops. Early continuity error.
Yeah, I mean, if there was continuity errors in this movie, I don't think we cared.
And of course, it's a silent film, so like what they did way back in the day, in order not to bore people, because it was nothing, you couldn't hear anything, they would just put in random music, and it was the same song looped over and over and over, and the music had nothing to do with what was going on.
Yeah, and it just drowned after a while. Like it didn't. But you did say, it was very inappropriate for the thing. Yeah,
it was silly. It kind of undermines everything.
Yeah. I don't think the director cared.
No, I mean, that's what you did back then. It's not, I mean, it's not a porno. There's no sex or anything like that going on. It's like a very mini version of Orgy of the Dead if you took out all of the dead parts.
Yeah, all the fun parts.
All the fun parts, all the ridiculous parts.
There wasn't. Yeah, it was not ridiculous. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, there's some titties, and that's it.
And dancing. Lots of dancing.
Random dancing.
Some of it was just kind of like...
Well, I think wasn't that like supposed to be like native, like Hawaiian, like a luau or whatever.
Funny. Oh my goodness.
Luau, I don't know.
I doubt it was choreographed. I think someone just said, just dance.
Yeah.
Just, okay. Is that
now you dance the dance of, what did they say? Dance of something?
The dance of the Loma Loma. And
yeah.
the feast of the Gooba Gooba. And it was like really weird fake native stuff. And it was silly.
Which at that time, they probably didn't know much about that stuff.
I know. And there's a whole genre of bad 30s, 40s, and 50s jungle adventures that we haven't even touched on Indie Film Cafe that we have to do because some of them are just so terrible. So really ridiculous. Republic Pictures did a bunch of them, and a few other of the lower minor studios did a bunch of those kinds of jungle serials that are really just wretchedly bad, but they're just funny. Like there's a whole series of early 30s and 40s bad westerns. There's oodles of that shit.
Yeah.
But this one was interesting. This is pre-code, so yeah, the nudity was clearly a thing. And of course, this is a nude photographer, so
he was used to it.
Yeah, he was used to it.
And these are probably his models.
Yeah, most likely.
I mean, most of them never worked, did anything else.
Not in pictures.
One was in something.
One was in a 1937 movie later on.
With like Benny Hill?
With Jack Benny.
Jack Benny.
And Ida Lupino.
Ida Lupino. There you go.
And a couple other folks.
But I bet it was like a small part, but still, at least they were in something.
Right.
Else.
And 37 was post-code, so there you go. So that was, I don't know, I thought it was kind of interesting. It's an interesting throwback, I thought. And
I mean, it was kind of cool, like, to look at it. It's just weird because, I hadn't seen a silent film in a while, like that, and it was just sort of like, okay. But
it just goes to show you how independent films back then were similar to independent films now. Very, very low budget, very, very tiny,
using
minuscule
people's
sets.
backyards.
Yeah. Because, the big studios back in the 30s, they put on some pretty expensive sets and pretty impressive things back then. I mean, they would build entire sets.
Not everybody can direct a movie back,
Right.
Studios, so.
This wasn't David O. Selznick.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I kind of dug it.
So you're saying you would have preferred this over Gone with the Wind?
Yeah, this is a lot more fun than Gone with the Wind. Can't stand that movie. But there's a lot more titty in this than there was in Gone with the Wind. If there was,
a lot more titty in this than a lot of movies.
I know, it was pretty much constant.
Yeah, it was throughout the whole movie. I mean, everybody's just walking around topless, and like what? I mean, some kids would be like, "That's a dream come true." I'd be like, "That's a little weird."
I mean, it gets a little. The trouble with movies like that is there's so much of it that it's just it loses its impact.
Yeah, it's
10 minutes in, it's just
or 5 minutes in this particular case because there's so much. Oh, and just after a while, I'm like, okay, I put some clothes on, dear.
It's funny because when I show Orgy of the Dead to people who've never seen it and don't know anything about it, I tell them there's an awful lot of nudity in there, and they either get really worried or really excited. And I'm like, trust me, you won't even notice the nudity 10 minutes in when there is nothing but odious dancing smashing you over the head. The movie's really all about horrible, horrible dancing, and it's like. They finally understand it, and they're like, "Oh my God, so much dancing!"
So they get more like mad about the dancing than they do the nudity.
Yeah, you lose track of the nudity. It's the dancing that clubs you over the head.
It's not nearly as bad as like Andy Sedaris' nudity. Right. It's just random, and I mean that's sort of what that is, in this.
Well, the difference is that clearly with Andy Sedaris, it is being exploitive. I mean, that's the whole point of the thing. This wasn't so much exploitive as it is just trying to sort of present their thoughts that this is what native villages look like. And, maybe at some point, but not really. No, people have clothing, for God's sakes.
Put them on. No offense. I'm okay with titties, but after a while...
Well, as a nude photographer, I'm sure what he's trying to say is that the human body is beautiful, especially the female human body, and so why not celebrate it? That's... really what this is about.
You never see male nudity in this movie. It's
not in this movie. There are other ones that have it, though. I have a Kenneth Anger movie that we could also do, so we'll see. But, so trying to sort of do it in an artistic way. It's not really being exploitative. There's no sex. There's not even really much of a hint of a sex, other than
It's
there's
not sexy.
occasional smooch here and there. But
It's
that's
not
about
even
it.
sexy at all.
No. The dancing really does
kind of turns you off a little bit.
It was just kind of silly.
No.
But anyway, there you go. So Forbidden Daughters. It's on. Well, what is it? Archive.org.
Archive.org, where you can probably watch a lot of like old short films.
Lots
and
of
stuff.
really old weird stuff, which is where I go to purloin some of those things because they're interesting.
There you go. So, all right. Well, we'll be back next month for a brand new episode. Until then, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.